Welcome to the Weekly Wardrobe, featuring Universe Galaxy Parsec famous. Oh, that's a unit of distance. Joey Zero.
People come from parsecs around
There we
to
go.
listen to Joey Zero and his less important sidekick, XandyPants.
His
Speak.
only several light years less important Xandy Shorts. Do have a debate about whether weapons are good as content. Ready?
Spoiler alert.
Vital.
They're less important than, well, they're about as important as, no, I guess you could say they're more important than silly game modes like Flappy Zephyr and the fighting Frame Fighter.
You're not supposed to argue against yourself. Those are like the most important. They give
What?
they give the game.
No, they are not.
They give the game character. Okay, not okay.
No, they don't.
No. Not specifically Flappy Zephyr, but like the existence, the presence of things like Lunaro, for example. Like,
okay, Lunaro and Flappy Zephyr are not the same.
All right, but come on, they're both like they're both
they're not even remotely
they're
the
both
same.
content no one consumes. Yeah, like first of all, people consume the hell out of weapons, and that we got a whole other like cannonade about that. But I gotta put my foot down. It does add some value to the game to have these like random things in there, and that's exactly what like bad weapon releases are still like that. Like the best example I could give you is the Quartak. Like that weapon should exist. Like it is a good thing that we have that weapon, even though it is like a pile of garbage, and literally when you shoot it, it feels like you're dying inside. Like like Shy has a video that's like an old woman with I'm sure you've seen this video with a gun like shooting to the sound of the Quartak, and like it's a soul crushing sound. Like it is like the most depressing gun sound that you could ever possibly have in a video game. But still, listen, like having just totally out there weapons like that adds a lot of value to games like this. It's important. Lunaro. Listen to how quiet he was for how long. That's a win. That was a win right there. That was a critical damn hit. Boom, headshot.
So I think a big part of it is like a big part of the difference there is the fact that like when Flappy Zephyr was really more of an Easter egg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was not like hyped up in things when they released it. I don't, to be honest, I don't remember when they released it. So it could have legitimately been about as hyped as Frame Fighter was, when they announced Frame Fighter, but and maybe I just missed it or whatever. But with Lunaro, like there were press releases.
Yeah, there was actually a lot. Like they were going ham on that one. They were like, "This is gonna be the thing. We're going for this." And I commend.
I still to this very day, I still think that if DE like had some like dedicated servers that were like DE's servers and not like owned by some dude in New York that like if DE had some servers, or if they had some way of dealing with the ping like issues that arise from having a PvP game mode played on a peer-to-peer connection, which I'm not saying that's easy. Like that is either requires.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still to this day I think that if they fixed the underlying connection issues that make that game as unplayable as it is, I say this as someone that loves Lunaro, I still think that if they fixed that, like a hell of a lot more people would play it.
Well, and as someone who does not like Lunaro, I wouldn't say hate, but not love is the word I would use. I agree. Like I actually think that them going in on that was not a bad move in general. Like I think it could have gone places. The sheer guts to just like randomly put like frame lacrosse Rocket League Talk like into Warframe, yeah, like okay, I could see that succeeding, but it just needed some things it doesn't have, and you're exactly right. It needs dedicated servers. You can't play PvP games without dedicated servers. It just doesn't work like that. And I
And
understand that's very expensive. Like balls deep doesn't mean like wallet bank account deep, but it maybe it has to.
I'm gonna laugh when the guy that owns that server in New York is like one of your patrons and like, listens to this and is like, "No, I was doing a service."
Okay. Listen, please. If you're listening to this right now and you own one of these servers, listen. I have several words for you. Not very many, only several, but they do include free exclusive content. um, but yeah, so no, like seriously though. So they have these game modes, and yes, they're not working right now. But like, I think even just not having them work, like having them be like derelict game modes, not okay. That was bad word choice.
Here's the thing: is like again, as someone that loves Lunaro,
you gotta stop saying that.
No, I refuse. It is it is an amazing source of material for content creation.
Okay, that's true. All right.
It gives me all of the player interactions of a PvP game mode without actually having to play PvP.
Okay, but listen, if we were having an argument about whether or not guns are good.
Okay, let me get to my point. Let me get to my point.
Yeah.
If they released new maps for Lunaro and called that content, I would be like, "Fuck you guys! This is not the game that I've opened Warframe to play."
Okay, all right. I see where you're. I see that flank. I see that 3-line formation. I see that. All right. Listen. So, if they make a weapon that isn't the kind of weapon that you signed up for, let's say you hate crits, like the numbers that are not white just make you angry. That's the kind of person you are. They just it pisses you off. RNGesus, you're like the anti RNGesus, the Church of Anti. Yeah. So you don't want to have crits, and then they release a weapon that is like crit heavy. Does that then mean that you log in and you say, "This is not the game that I came to play"? No, it does not, because that is an additional thing that you can experiment and be exposed to, and you are playing that game. That's the main game. And so you're going to that's a weak argument, but I'm glad I can definitely make it for Warframe. The main game that you're playing involves using guns. So if they release, a weapon or a melee weapon or a gun, it is related to what you're doing. It is relevant to you in theory. So if you don't personally like it, it's an opportunity to expand your horizons or be close-minded or whatever, and that has more value than just making assets for something people don't like. Let's be even more fair and say, I think that bows are kind of unpopular overall. There are people that like them. I know people that like them, but like, don't you think overall bows not so popular?
Yeah, I could
and so,
agree with that.
I don't know. I'm just saying I could see it. And I need an example really badly, or this is gonna sound like a really stupid point. So, hey, whenever you're pulling it out of your, you just gotta be honest. It's a polite thing to do. If they released a new bow, it's not like people would be mad because it was a bow. Oh, people do that. Ooh, I put myself in a corner there. I'm gonna stop talking for a second. Hold on, let me think about that. Just talk about, do one of your 3-line formation things, but
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that people have any reason to get angry about a weapon or really any other feature added that they don't like. Honestly, I don't like the fact that Frame Fighter is getting added into the game. Like it's a cool concept, and I would love to see it developed into like a full-scale fighter. Like, I would love to see it developed into a fighter, like, on par with Tekken or something like that. I would love that! But it's not going to happen, and Frame Fighter is just kind of a mockery of the fact that that's just not going to happen ever. At least that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
But, like, that doesn't mean, like, just because it's getting added into the game doesn't mean I have to play it. Like, I'm obviously, like, I have played this game enough to know what game modes I don't want to play and to avoid them. But for example, like the market is its own separate its own separate part of the game that I just don't interact with like at all, because it's not worth the blood pressure, the spike in blood pressure from like all that. But that's just me. I know there are some players that are very successful with that. I know there are some players that get access to content that I don't, because they have a higher stock of platinum, because they have a higher tolerance for that kind of thing. But the like what I'm saying is that it would like the kind of content that keeps me coming back, the kind of like the kind of gameplay that I experience and I'm like, wow, that was a really great gameplay experience, doesn't have a whole lot to do with what weapon they have just released. And very seldom do they release any weapon, like Arcoplasmor included, like really cool, unique weapons with lots of personality. Very seldom do they release a weapon that I'm like, oh wow, like I'm so glad I logged in to get this new weapon today. Like I feel like that every time that there's a new quest. I feel like that every time there's a new Warframe. I've almost never felt like that about a weapon.
The cannons are loaded. The problem with that argument is that the benefit of adding new weapons to the game is cumulative and is not realized from the individual times they add the weapons to the game. So when they added the Arca weapons, they added this sort of high profile set of 3 weapons that had really interesting mechanics. Arca Cisco only so interesting, but still different mechanics, the sort of things that made them have a lot of character. And had this particular aesthetic, and some Corpus heavy duty weapon. Aren't they like special ops Corpus weapons or something? So that was added, and I agree that I did not log in and be like, oh, the new Arca weapons. I like new weapons as content, and even I did not go into the game and be like, today I went to sleep and thought about how I got the Arca Cisco, and the Arca Titron is such a cool-looking hammer that vibrates a little bit when you hold it, and I love that. It's so fulfilling. Like, yeah, indeed, no, I did not feel that way. But over time, there have been times when I log in and think, look at all of the new stuff that we have. Like, I have a new Zaw, and there were those new whatever weapons, and they added submachine guns. What do they even mean by submachine guns in this game? And, that. That cumulative effect is a very important part of the game, and I don't think that I'll let you do it if you want to, but I don't think you're going to want to fight the fight that they should stop adding those. You know what I mean?
So that's not a hill I'll die on.
No, I was going to say, you will die on it if you go up it.
That's not a hill that I'll die on, but if today's Warframe had the same weapons that were available in Update 8, I would still absolutely love this game.
Okay. But I would still say that a lot of the value day-to-day of playing the game is that there is inherent sort of quiet variety to Warframe. Like a big part of it. Most people who talk about this don't say it that way. The common way I've heard it said is like, it is essentially a game where you just repeat the same thing over and over again, but what a thing to have to repeat. I think that's a quote from Polygon. I don't want to plagiarize by accident, but something like that. Lots of people say stuff like this about Warframe. And that's true. And I think that part of the reason that it is such a thing to repeat, such a joy to essentially do something very similar over and over again, is because there is such a great variety of weapons. If we had the same number of weapons we had back in Update 8, I would still play it for a little while, but there needs to be some variance of gameplay, and to enjoy the good movement, to enjoy the good gunplay, to enjoy the good horde shooter, I need to shoot things at the horde that are not the same thing all the time. I don't want to shoot a Bratton at the horde all the time. I do like the Bratton. The Bratton is fine, but I like the Stubba. I like the Stubba. But even I can only queue into a Darrow Sedna just to shoot the Stubba at enemies so many times, because it's the Stubba. It's not actually that interesting. I just really like it. And so adding more weapons does add a very quiet but very cumulative benefit that builds up and builds up and builds up and allows you to have weapons that you like with certain frames more. And I have an argument buried in here about your particular playstyle, but I don't want to go there yet. That's what I have to say about that. I think that the cumulative benefit is very high over time, and I think that the argument that you're making boils down to like them adding 3 new weapons to the game doesn't have immediate impact. There isn't like new content. It doesn't change the nature of the game on its own. It's more like the fact that they release many new weapons changes the nature of the game over time, or makes the nature of the game what it is, or whatever.
I could definitely see the value there. Like I could definitely see the value of like being able to change your how do I put this? Being able to approach the way that you engage enemies and the way that you engage mission objectives and everything from like I can see how like the having a multitude of different weapons can affect that, and I can definitely see the value there. But I don't feel like it is content that stands on its own merit. Like I feel like if you like in a game that was weapon frame, that's not a game that I would play. But in a game that was like Warframe with only the Bratton, I would still like if I was still making progress towards something, if I was still working on the focus system or working on like my collections, like a collection of arcanes or whatever, with literally only the Bratton, that is totally a game that I would totally play that game for 5 years.
I'm not sure which way to go because I disagree. I would play weapon frame, but I think that is the same argument that I want to make about like you have an aversion to combos. That's where I'm going. And that is the same argument. It's the reverse of that argument is that I just love like what I would call synergy, but you're going to say combos. I love that. So I would play weapon frame, but like can I agree that objectively weapon frame would be stupid? Like yes, it would be. But at the same time I am considering, and I do not know whether to go in the direction that it needn't stand on its own merits. It's not. It wouldn't. It is inconceivable that it would need to stand on its own merits. So, it doesn't matter that it doesn't. I don't care. It's the same thing as fashion frame updates. Fashion frame updates are obviously not gonna stand on their own merits. Like if there was a game that was just fashion frame, like you can't like bring it anywhere.
I'm pretty sure that game exists somewhere out there, and there are like 2 people playing it.
Okay, but
like that's I'm saying that in agreement with your point of like that would be a dumb fucking game.
It does make it does make some people happy, but like that on its own is not enough. Like the point is that you look cool while doing things, like not just like in the abstract. Like the point is you wouldn't download Warframe for that. Whereas I would argue if Warframe was free to play and it was just a gun sandbox, like I would still like try the guns. I don't know, like that. Sure, cool. And then like maybe I wouldn't be into it for 5 years. Yes, I wouldn't play it for 5 years, but play it I would. Like, and I think it's the same thing with just the Bratton. I don't know if I agree that you would play Warframe if it was just the Bratton. You do like the Bratton. Listen, this is a man that really likes the Bratton. Between you and me, you're not a big fan of Joey Zero's content. I don't know what you're doing on my community, but if you somehow aren't and you still tolerate my content, the man is a fan of the Bratton. But like, still, I don't know. So, what would you rather talk about? Let's be fair. This is an argument between friends, folks. So let's be fair. What do you want to talk about more? What compels you more? Should we talk about the thing where I would play weapon frame and I'm going to talk about like I'm going to accuse you of being someone who has an overly large bias against like weapons in the context of specific frames basically. And then we can dig into framework a little bit. Or do you want to talk about how the things are never on their own context, and a lot of the content that we get is not actually that good if you don't Here's an example. I don't think I would enjoy a lot of the quests that I've done as much as I did if I couldn't pick what I played through them with. It's not the end of the world, but I would not like the quests in this game nearly as much if you couldn't choose like what frame you played through them with. And I know that sounds really insignificant, but it's totally not, because that's the way it feels like you. It feels like your journey, because it's your Warframe that you built, like not the Warframe, like not Warframes in general. You know what I mean? Like it's not an Excalibur, like it's your Excalibur that you built, and you like it's your Volt, like it's your Frost that you upgraded to because you wanted more CC, like it's your Frost Warframe, like not. And then like before you are a Second Dream, you know, thing, you that gives you a feeling of individuality because you built this stuff, and like that matters a lot. And if you couldn't do that, I don't think the story of this game stands on its own merits. I think that the story of this game has impact in its own context, and in a vacuum doesn't have that impact. It fails to hit that. Which road would you rather go down? We are at a crossroads here.
I think I'd rather talk about the game that is combo setup frame. Because
damn it, I can already see how this is gonna go.
Because I don't, and it's okay. We can also talk about solo survivals.
No, I mean
we can make it. It can be a give and take kind of thing. But but I'm in agreement with you about I'm like, for example, during the Second Dream, it would not nearly have been as impactful if it was not my Excalibur in the cutscenes, and if it wasn't my Excalibur that had saved my operator during the thing, like it would not have been nearly as impactful.
I'm not gonna lie, I used that argument specifically because I know that you felt that way about that.
Yeah. But I think we're in agreement about that. And I can see where weapons would make could make a difference in that, where I can see where
not on their own, but like the fact that you also picked the weapons is part and parcel of that, only serves to magnify it.
Yep. I will say the first time I completed the Second Dream, it was Excalibur and the Bratton and the Skana and
So no, listen,
anyway,
this is actually important, because knowing that about Joey Zero is very good framing for what we're about to talk about. This is a man that completed the Second Dream with the Bratton and Excalibur and a Skana. No.
Yep.
So we all know, because of what this podcast is, I get to sit back and be cozy for a second, because y'all know what my content is. I really, really like synergies and between frames. I don't like it to be combo setup frame, which is what Joey Zero always says. And we have always had this sort of like ongoing background debate where I don't really even know if Joey Zero likes Warframe, like Framework, my Framework series. Because I think
just adds up. I fucking love it. Okay.
Do you actually?
I learned, there are so many things that I've learned from that. Like we were just talking earlier about Nova.
Okay, well, no, but listen, so the thing that confuses me about that, though, is, I think that the general style of gameplay that I'm suggesting you really don't like. Like, the basic thesis of Framework as a series is that this game contains a huge amount of different things that you can use compared to similar titles. And the way that you can enjoy the most of it is by asking weapons to really pull their weight in the slot that you put them in. Whenever you put something in your loadout, it is in a context. Whether you intend it to be in that context or not, it is in fact now in a context, and that context might make it better than it normally is, or probably not actively worse than it normally is, but not better. And if you go out of your way, to some degree, to a lot of a degree, whatever, to put things in contexts where they're better, more of the game is good. And so you have more fun with it. And I think that's more fun. And I think that if you start building things that way, you abandon the idea of a tier list. You just, like, how good things are does not matter. You'll start being like, this is objectively kind of powerful, but in the context of, Harrow, it becomes insane, or whatever. That's the obvious one. It's the new core. Um, it's you all know what weapon. And I think that you look at that and think about things like, use them in the Ember framework. I did like this cheesy thing. It was called grilled cheese Ember. Come on, give me a break.
That was one of my favorite ones.
Really?
And that was like, yeah, I like the whole time all I was thinking about was literally the GIF that I tweeted at you like earlier. That was a terrible quality of that GIF. But I was just picturing, what is that? What anime is that from?
Food Wars.
Food Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't hear you.
No Soma.
Thank you. There you go. I've only, yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Because in that framework, I did like fire out the Mutalist Quanta Orb that gives weapons flat critical chance when you fire through them, and then use it with the pre-buffed Atomos that has no crit stats, and run critical damage mods on it so that when you fire through the bubble, it has really good crit scaling alongside Ember's fire damage magnification, and then it does like lit damage, like actually literally on fire damage, and all the enemies die. Like, and that is the thing that you don't like, right? Like, you don't like that kind of like, that was excessive. Like, come on. Like, no, you can't. I like went into missions and did that, and I was like, this is stupid.
So my big thing is like, I know you've heard, you like probably at this point, you and everyone that is hearing this has probably heard me say this like 1,000 times, but you know that I'm really, really big on like the most important skill in Warframe being adaptability. And I feel like the more how do I put this?
The more intricate the synergies are, the more they'll fall apart, possibly.
Not necessarily, but the less context in which they maintain their value. Well, yeah, I guess that's the same thing.
Yeah, you're talking about like the more tight the synergies become, the more the niche becomes like a limitation of where they actually do anything valuable.
Yeah, like for example, Harrow and the new core, right? This like that is a really awesome combination. Like that works in so many different situations, until you queue up for a random mission and there is a spaghetti nidus in your squad, and then the enemies are not damaging you while you're in Covenant, and you are unable to land headshots.
This is fair. So I see that point, and what I would say about that is that like, if framework solves that problem by not having one synergy. Like, I would never make a framework that was just like Harrow and the new core. For example, at the moment, I don't have a framework on what I'm about to say out, but this is what it will be for Harrow. He has like 3 combat spaces. He has neither half of Covenant active, he has defensive part of Covenant active, and he has offensive part of Covenant active, assuming you're not using the new augment where you can keep the offensive part active like forever. Yeah. Speaking of which, that would be a solution, just saying, but that it's still very niche.
It's still not a solution if you can't land the headshots.
Ever during the entire mission, your spaghetti nidus is pretty legit. Anyway, so the point being, like, if that were to happen to that framework, you could accuse it of being a poorly fleshed out synergy build if it didn't have like other stuff to do. And like the way I'd set it up would be like, I don't know, you have like the Archoplasmor or something as your weapon for when you don't have either part of Covenant active, and then like that's good with like things that counter the synergies of the other parts of your loadout, where
I can see that.
Yeah, so like you can build it that way, and then it's like you're sort of not only filling out your combat spaces, but like new framework that has not kind of happened yet will counter the times that the framework puts itself in a corner. And then that problem is sort of like, and that's fun. It's fun to like think about, because then you come to a point where you're like, I want to play Harrow in the new core. And then the rest of your loadout, like, well, you're not going to bring nothing, Like, and so for you, like, maybe you like the Bratton. So you do like the Bratton, so you bring the Bratton, let's say, right? But like, to some degree, you might not always want to play with the Bratton. You might be like, I don't need anything here, so I guess I'll just bring something along. And the feeling of being like, oh, but if I bring this along, it like fixes a problem with like what I'm trying to have fun with. And then like if you go on a mission and that happens, it's a good feeling. You're like, I'm prepared. Like, I can use my counter thing. Like a mag is like that's like the only saving grace of mag in my opinion. With Mag's new augment where she shuts off guns, and now you have magnetize, and then you can use the miter with the nullifying blades that destroy nullifier bubbles. Like that can spin around inside your magnetized fields and do tons of damage, and it can destroy nullifier bubbles, and you can turn off guns from enemy, and you like, and then you have this frame that's just like nothing but counterattack. Like it's like blue mage the warframe. And you just like whenever enemies do anything, you just go nope, like nope, 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 and then like they all die. And it's awesome, and that is the only thing that saves like how I feel about Mag, like to the point where I would now say I like Mag, but she's still a terrible person. If Mag was a person, you wouldn't be friends with her, but like I would still bring her to war.
Wow.
That was a good wow.
That was very well stated. And I will say that like it's not a case I know that you are aware that my feelings are like this on the matter, but I don't think that the Bratton is amazing for everything. I don't think that the Bratton is like
No,
the end all be all of
I
weapons.
painted you too much to be
if
like
you're
that.
not
Sorry.
if you're not using the Bratton, you need to get fucking good, son, because like
Can you imagine someone that thinks that?
well, that's the problem. People are like that with the Opticore.
People are
like that with the Vectis.
Yeah. And that's why I like this mindset, because I think it counters that.
I agree, and I think it does counter that, and I do agree that taking that kind of mindset into a mission is fun, particularly solo survivals. But like a perfect example is that I was running a solo survival on Apollodorus the other day, just for funsies. I needed polymer, and I was like, well, I haven't done this in a while, and brought Necros, and I definitely did have Gore disabled. So, and that's the thing. Now I know about that.
So that's confirmed, right? Can we tell people that now?
Yeah, I guess so.
We'll
we
talk,
should
we'll
totally.
talk about it after. I'll make a footnote about it, but we should make a video about it.
But I brought the Zenistar because I never really had used it in a mission against Infested, like in solo survival against Infested. And so I planted my little Zenistar disc, kind of sat back and like watched them run into it, and they were all dying and stuff, and I was like, oh, kind of easy peasy.
I'm so good.
But then a thing happened that I did not expect to happen, and that was the ancients, like, of course, move much slower than a lot of the other infested units, and they would buff the other infested units that were running through my Zenistar, like, before they would take any damage themselves, which meant that they were eating the procs, they were granting damage reduction, and the other units started making it through my Zenistar before I thought they would, in terms of like the how far I thought the damage would scale. And it's just because like one charger would run through with like 3 disruptors and a healer, like giving him like all the damage reduction and eating all of his procs. And so that started happening, and I left and was like, okay, let's give it another shot. And this time I brought the like along with it to augment my strategy there. I actually brought a status Cycron with a bunch of radiation. And all I really did was I just focused, like I throw out my disc, focus on getting rad procs on all the ancients, so that they no longer buffed the other like foot units that ran through. And
I thought you were gonna say Archiplasmor, but yeah.
No, because the for my primary I brought my primary. I definitely ended up bringing a lens with punch through.
What?
Yep.
Why?
For making the easiest of one-shotting a large group of ancients from behind cover.
Okay, that's fair. I suppose. Wow. Okay, I can. I feel like I should commend you for having the guts to shoot that at a wall and hope it goes through, though.
Yeah, well, it was Apollodorus,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but it was I did I after a little bit of testing, it was the weapon that I had Formud and everything that seemed the least discriminate of like infested buffs.
Oh yeah, sure. No, it's not a bad choice at all. I mean,
Um,
I just the Cycron is a cool choice. You're not gonna run out of ammo, so you don't have to go out. Like if you need to keep rad procking stuff, you can just like rad forever. Whereas like Archoplasmor, you do have to reload. I was just thinking Archoplasmor forces the rad procs, but it's not like the Cycron doesn't. Like you get like 10 every second. That's cool.
yeah.
That's
So
a good
anyway,
example of what I was talking about. That's nice.
yeah, I was just saying like that I can that definitely is fun, and like I said earlier, like I definitely do see the value in having options like that open to you. I'm just saying that they don't for me they don't make or break what Warframe is for me. Like if those options were not available to me, I would have messed around until I could find something that worked as well as I could figure out. With what was available to me, and the game's always going to be like that. Like it's always going to be, people will always use the tools that are available to them, even if those tools are not intended.
Let's record another podcast episode right after this.
Oh God.
It'll be 3 hours. No, yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, and I guess like to some degree, I would concede that for a while now, I've been thinking about like how much it is worth us having new weapons that don't fill out new combat spaces, like that are just like not actually new. Like a really good example of this, in my opinion, is the Argonac. Like the Argonac has its like highlighting enemy thing, but that can't really conceivably be a synergy. It's just like and it's not very good at doing it either.
One time during the early days of PoE, I tried bringing that to an Eidolon fight, hoping that it would highlight Fauvealists. I'm sure it did, but it did not matter.
Yeah, well, right. It just like doesn't. Yeah, I had thought of the same thing. I was like, isn't it good at night for seeing where enemy? Like it works, but like it just anyway.
I was just kind of like, well, it's a little difficult to see the Vonvalis through the giant flashing like whale strobe light.
Right.
But
and the Argonac is not good. It's not awful, but it's not great. And it doesn't offer anything new. It has multiple firing modes, but we have weapons that have both those firing modes already, the Stradivar. And the Stradivar is now actually good. So, by the way, the Stradivar is really good if you haven't tested it yet.
I haven't messed around with it.
It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. It's fun. It doesn't add anything. It's never going to get into a video, and I want it to, because visually it has character, and like highlighting enemies is cool and could kind of, I don't know, like if you're playing a frame that has like crazy like light show, like visual destruction effects going on, I could definitely see the value in like making your Argonac have a crazy energy color that's way different, so that you can like really easily see enemies in the middle of that effect. That could be really cool. There's the synergy right there, but it's like it took me like 5 seconds to come up with, but like the effect isn't strong enough, you know what I mean? And so does that add anything? Like, was that anything more than just the proof of concept that weapons might have things like that? Like basically like cosmetic buffs, like so to speak? No, it's not more than that. I agree. That doesn't really add that much to the game. Like, every time I see that in my arsenal, I get a little bit sad. I actually think that detracts from the game. It makes me a bit upset when I see it. Why wouldn't they just buff it to be global? When you have the weapon out, what enemies get highlighted in their color, because the laser sight is like the laser sight of the heavens, or can Grineer hybrid laser sight, I don't know, that will pierce the heavens with its anyway. Because it would be cool. I don't care how it works. It would be cool. That would make it useful. So yes, I can concede that when they add new weapons that don't whatever, they don't whatever. But Do you know the Cassowar?
Yes.
Yeah, so the Cassowar was a weapon that I like decried as being like, we have this weapon already. The last thing we need is another max range polearm that only has status. We literally already have like three of those. Why did we get this weapon? You could use the Tonbo. It's like very close to being the exact same thing. You could use the Sero. It's the same thing but purely elemental, which is better in a lot of ways. It's a trade-off. Why would you use this? Why does this exist? Why? Why did you make this? And honestly, I found a really good use for it. I was making the Saren framework, the first Saren framework, and Saren is a frame that doesn't have a lot of explicit synergy. It's basically just like if things are good at popping her spores, then they pop her spores, and there are a lot of things that are good at that. And tight, super tight synergies are like sort of evade her. But because she has such insane condition overload potential with providing 2 status procs automatically, you get Toxin and it doesn't combine, so you always get Toxin procs, and then Viral from the spores. You can have like Corrosive, Toxin, Viral, like, and IPS damages, like, and forced procs, like, and maybe like something from a condition overload priming weapon, and it's just like nuts. And like the Cassowar is a weapon with very high range, very good speed for stacking up all the procs, and an even IPS spread. And honestly, like I needed that. Like I was looking through all the weapons in the game and I was like, oh my, like you gotta be kidding me. I actually have to admit that I'm using the Cassowar because it is the best fit for what I like. It doesn't have crit, so I'm not losing critical damage by putting in healing return and whatever, which I'm gonna put in because Sarah needs it for survivability, and it stacks up all these status brought like blah. Yeah, okay, like, so my point is, sometimes they add weapons like that, and like they did not mean for, they don't get credit. They did not mean for them to be good. They were just adding a weapon because adding weapons makes them money. That is why. That is the reason. However, like a lot of the time, even though they don't intend the weapon to be anything other than just like, the Cassowar does look cool. It's a little large, like it looks a little weird. I never really loved how it looked, but it does look interesting. Like it's different. I don't think they intended anything more than for it to look interesting and different, but that doesn't mean it wasn't anything other than interesting and different. And I think more often than not, that's the case. Like there are very few, like if we were to really go through, I don't think we should do this, and talk about like all the weapons update by update that were an addition to the game versus weren't an addition to the game. I think that there aren't a lot that were not an addition to the game. Like a lot of them, I think they knew they were going to be interesting and good and cool, and they were, like the Arca weapon set, and a lot of them I don't think they thought they would be, but they somehow were. And like the Cassowar, I don't know. I'm not sure there are that many of these weapons, but I agree that there are some that it's like they get added and it's like whatever. So sure, in that sense.
Cool. I think we both have said everything that.
Yeah, I stopped for a second. I was like, is that it? Did I just defeat the topic? Look at that. Look at that. In the true spirit of friendship, content creator solidarity, we stood up together. We said, you know what? We're gonna deal with this topic. We're gonna talk about this topic. We're gonna do a little debate, do a little chivalrous debate between upstanding citizens of the internet. And then we're gonna defeat the beast together. We're just gonna boop. It's dead. Goodbye. End of podcast. Shoobity boop boop boop. Did you just took my shoobity boop boop boop?
I didn't take anything.
He just tried to shoobity boop boop boop. You heard him.
I put it up. I wait. What's the phrase? I set it up. You knocked it down. There you go.
Oh, money in the bank. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this free Patreon podcast sampler. I'm going to give these out, maybe every month or so that you can get a taste of what's happening on Patreon. And if you really like these, then you can become a patron, and at any level, you can see all the content I make for my patrons. So it's a lot of extra videos. If you're interested in that, check the link on the screen or in the description, or check the description to see more Patreon-related samplers. Feel free to try before you buy. I'll see you next time.